Study and Formulating Committee meeting. It is July 19th, 2023, and our goal, as we have said many times, is to look at what incentives exist today and what other ones might possibly be considered, and to look at a framework for if Metro wants to be intentional about describing the priorities that those should be assigned to, and if we want to look at having a policy with regard to whether that should be capped in whole or in part. So thank y'all for serving on the committee. And we kind of divided up tasks in terms of what we hope that we will ultimately put together as a report. And there's nothing like having homework to do to get you all of a sudden to realize what else we need to know. So if, my hope for today is to look at sort of the frameworks and thoughts that we've created and put together. And then if we need to regroup and maybe even bring in a few more experts to fill in some gaps. Yay, Charles Robert.
Sorry, Mike.
You haven't missed anything? Thank you for being here. Yeah, the materials packet right there. Then we can, I think, lay out some time to do that. Officially, we should be close to having something to present, but I think it's more important to get it where we feel like we've got a good product than to rush to meet an arbitrary deadline, particularly when this council will not necessarily be the one to implement whatever policy. So if we spill over, I think that's okay. And I know this lady will be there on the council, so we'll just depend on that. I'm working my hardest to also be there, but we can depend on that one.
Unopposed. Great.
She's done amazing work, which is great. So that being said, we have broken it down into sort of a description of what exists now and has happened in the past and what those are, and then sort of an in-between piece to speak about policy and priorities and transparency, and then a piece about recommendations and where we go from here. So what I would propose doing, and I have passed out everything that I could find in the emails that were sent to me, and so I apologize that I was not able to find Fiona's, because I can attest that she did send it.
She did.
She did.
So I should never respond first.
Yeah, I know. I need some help. Do you want me to send it to you?
No, Fiona just sent it. In terms of, let's just pull it up. Let's see if it can come through.
The table will help.
Inbox. Fiona, there it is. Okay. So my suggestion is that we maybe take each of those three sections, look at where we are on that, and then talk about what it will take to get those fleshed out, and where we need staff help and where we need to bring in additional resources or subject experts or whatever, and go from there. So Charles Robert, I think you ended up on the recommendation team. So okay, great. Everybody knows where they are. So the initial description of what we have is Fiona and Mick, right? So I'm gonna open up what Fiona sent and then let you guys do the talking if that's okay.
Do you want me to start talking?
Start talking. Yeah, go for it.
So we subdivided the task between I had the MDHA pilot for the low-income housing tax credits and the newly created or relatively newly created Health and Ed Board mixed income pilot. I think at the back of the packet that everyone has right before the table is basically the description of what it starts off with, who's administering it. Fiona's thing has a very similar, I borrowed her structure. Who's administering it, what the annual budget, like they can't issue abatements for more that total more than that amount, which is $2.5 million and $3 million, I believe. You'll see a little description there. This is all directly sourced from the source themselves, the Health and Ed Board and MDHA websites directly, so no editorializing, just compiling maybe a couple of things and editing it down to what I saw as the main information there. I don't know how much detail we want to get into on each one, but sort of what we were trying to do is just basically have, I think what we want is a short summary of what's happening now. And really what we should be looking at. Our goal is more forward-looking.
Yes. I mean, I think what's important is to ultimately ensure that the reader of this document understands enough of the process. I mean, the fact that this is money that we forego, that never passes through the budget. Except that for some of the funding mechanisms, it does actually get paid to the trustee and then passed on. And I don't know how much of that we need to get into the weeds on, but ultimately just to have an understanding of how it is generally determined. Simply, it's just the explanation of what the increment is. I don't think we need to go into the super fine detail of that, but just so there's an understanding that if this project didn't happen, the increment wouldn't be there. If we weren't given the abatement, the increment would be going into the general fund, except that the project wouldn't be there without the abatement. And that's why we think these are good things to do as long as they're accomplishing the priorities that we've set, and those are changing over time. Is that?
I do think setting up maybe that, I did not go into that, but I think one thing was, as we walk through this over the weeks, I'm still a little confused on how it flows. So just trying to think of a very, very simple framework to present it so that it doesn't get complex, and maybe trying to distill it down in the same type of format so readers can kind of follow through the process. I think that was a goal, clarity and simplicity. But I do think some of the historic matters, but in a very bite-sized.
Right.
Not because, that was kind of done before, so that those were goals.
Right.
But what I guess I'm hearing you say is the process of what it is needs to be really focused on up front. And maybe that's where I'm not sure in the implementation, I definitely need to work on that.
Okay.
So I can make that note.
And also, I think maybe it's just worth distinguishing both ones I was working on are pilots. So there's a payment in lieu of taxes versus a tax increment financing, which is what you're talking. That's the one where it comes in and then goes to pay off a debt.
Right.
I don't know if that one or the other has particular advantages, or if they are just different legal mechanisms that achieve the same results. And if they are different legal mechanisms that have the same results, I could see us just sort of saying, hey, there's two different legal that have the same results. Or if they have different consequences in ways that I think about right now, it might be worth saying, hey, a TIF is better in these situations, whereas a payment in lieu of taxes is better in those situations. It's not clear to me, other than different authorities have to do different things at different times to achieve the policy ends that we want. And one might be, actually you can only use this tool for this particular policy end as enabled by our state law.
Right. Anybody from finance able to comment on that?
Sorry, I have no idea about that.
Okay.
I can find some information though.
Okay.
And I think that a little bit of the difference is, especially on the MDHA palette on affordable housing, I think where you see that consistently used is for somebody buying an existing apartment complex, right, or existing housing. And what they're saying is, hey, if you'll essentially cap my property taxes for 10 years in the form of a pilot, or I'll agree what I will pay as a result of that, I can agree to keep these affordable, right? And then I think where you see the TIF used is where there's more of a new capital outlay or project that's being financed, right, where they're, and in order to do this, I wouldn't be doing this project but for the TIF. And most of that is on something new, right? Or a big renovation to the historic piece of it, et cetera. But to your point, it all kind of gets you to the same place. Either you're most likely through the pilot situation preserving affordable housing, creating or preserving, and with TIF, it's the incentive that's kind of out there as a part of this project, but for the TIF funds, I couldn't open this up to have affordable housing as a piece of it.
And part of that is also the funding mechanism for the TIF of what it covers. On the infrastructure side, but it's also the underwriting on the deal.
I really like that. I think that to me is like a really meaningful distinction. With a pilot, basically, instead of having a separate TIF loan, you're basically able to borrow, like I'm just thinking about from a development standpoint, the affordable house is where I work. You're just able to borrow more money because you have higher net operating income that they can underwrite against. And you can choose to have those loan proceeds to achieve this stated goal. And it's sort of what this incremental increase in loan proceeds is. It's not tied to any one particular aspect, whether it's sidewalks or dishwashers, or site work or plumbing. Whereas the TIF financing is directly tied, in all cases, to specific infrastructure and maybe housing on the TOD TIF if we ever do it.
Which we should. I think that's a true statement. I mean, it has to be spelled out exactly what's happening.
The transparency part.
Right, if we're going to get to. Okay. Great. And we're, again, in terms of describing what's physically out there right now, the pilot and the TIF, the two types of pilot and the TIF are the universe of what currently exists. So we've got those. And I'm looking back at what you said.
Yeah, again, I was trying to hit that deadline because I'm just like a rule follower, so it definitely needs some meat added.
That's how we start. That's how we start.
Out.
No.
But both yours were TIFs, right?
Both, yes. The IDB, I think, is a little less clear to me, too.
Yeah, and Margaret, you spent a lot of time with the IDB. In terms of what they use TIFs for, have we, so Fiona's document, which again, my bad, it's not printed here, but she essentially says, for MDHA, it's just redevelopment in blighted areas for the historical use. And then the IDB was economic development focused on jobs creation and development.
And again, a lot of this is, we took from other, I think it's more when you get into, I think a lot of people, or maybe that's not a good assumption, people know that in general, but it's like how, I think more of the details when we started to break down like the exact implementation process and the historical use and the annual budget. I think that's where I'm just trying to get those bite-sized nuggets, that information. Would that be something I could?
Yeah, I can help you with that.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, great. All right, that sounds good. Trying to get back to the minutes. Great. Okay, great. Anything else y'all want to say about those? So ultimately, the goal will be to describe what's out there, how they flow, what they typically have been used for in the past, and then we'll go from there. Okay. On that one. Okay, and then Angel and Latanya and I were talking about sort of the process and how we ensure in all those current and hopefully some future additions that we make that we got a transparent and effective process. And I will let you.
I think I'm dream big because what my suggestion was to create a centralized database where all this information can be located and found. Like the definitions of down by Fiona and Nick. This is right. So if we put this in a database so that anyone who's interested in using any of these products will be able to go to the database, they can read it, they can study it. There'll be, if you have the historical use, you can also have that so they can see what different types of projects have already been used and how the money was used and how effective. I think it also will work well with government because then we can also show this is how we created dollars. This is where the dollars went. This is how it came back. So I think that's very important. I also think it will aid in everybody understanding the process because I'm still here. I work in real estate and I'm like, oh, that's another twist. So I'm learning as I go and piecing together. But I really think that would make it totally transparent. Mm-hmm. And since the money doesn't travel through the budget and on the council, you can still account for the money because those numbers will be there.
And does economic development, that falls under the mayor's office, technically, doesn't it? I mean, would this best live under finance or under economic development? Because that's kind of what I've been imagining.
I mean, each mayor has the ability to either have an economic development office or not. So it might be best to live under finance.
Right, okay. Gotcha. Would finance like that?
I would have to ask.
Add that to your list of things to.
These finance is required by the charter, right? Do away with
We know it's going to be there. Yeah.
So what I did was I used a little AI, but it just works great. It just kind of broke down the description of how the database would work and the benefits and how to implement it. And we can, tweak this a little bit, do some changes to make it fit our need. But I think it did a pretty good job of what it was I wanted to do and what I was saying.
That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. I mean, I know in the past, and I'm not saying I'm comfortable with this at all, there was some tendency to sort of know where all this was, and there was somebody who knew where it was, but the thought was, well, we don't want our competition seeing all this stuff, and I think we're beyond that now. I mean, I think we've decided we can't work that way anymore because it used to be all the cities were having a race to the bottom, to give away the farm to try to entice people to come here, and I think at this point Nashville is fortunate enough to be in the situation that
One of the top 10 cities to come to.
one of our goals is to ensure, and part of what we want to include in our study is what are the community values that need to be part of this, that you're going to be supportive of. So I think we've come full circle, and which is a good thing to say that we think it's important and valuable to have all this information available and plainly in sight. So I would just check with the numbers people sitting in the corner over there and see if is there any reason at this point. I mean, I think just people value transparency so much that it's bound to be expected in every city at this point.
I would say so. But again, we'll refer to Kelly
Okay.
on that.
All right.
I think that, it's kind of table stakes now. Every city is doing, there's no hidden,
And they're being very creative. So I think they could learn, any cities could learn from us and we from them.
Right.
And I think also what I think we're moving towards is a more explicit criteria for what goals need to be achieved in order to unlock financing with all of these programs. And so it's a little less backroomy. And frankly, the government can do whatever it wants to some degree, and if it wants to cut separate deals outside of this, that is, I don't think it stops that from happening. But if we have the MDHA pilot guidelines there, we have the Health Net Board pilot. I think the IDB is still evolving in terms of its goals, and I think I'm sorry they're having more meetings
Yeah, I mean, I know that's a goal of Latanya's, which I support wholeheartedly. And I think, I mean, ultimately, I think the IDB should actually be the owner of the ultimate website on how the IDB pilot, TIF, works. So, and I'm still learning about when IT is comfortable having things on multiple pages or having links for multiple pages. But to me, I agree, there should be a single landing page that has centralized information about all the options and then sends you to
the different locations.
to get the detail. Is that?
Yeah, I could see that potentially. What I'd worry about if it was too centrally located and we have these different relatively autonomous government bodies working on things, that maybe our recommendation is more along the lines of each one of these tax incentive bodies should keep information that includes the amount of abatement and goals for it, and maybe there's 5 or 6 things, probably have outlined right here, that touches on it, but maybe there's a central place which says, hey.
Yeah, maybe not send people to too many links, but you get lost in links.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. But I just no, Margaret. I keep asking her, can we get a link to this here? Because this is where my brain says I should go to look for it. So,
ITS is very particular about that, which I've learned recently too.
Yeah.
They're very particular about having the document on one site, and then if you want to link to it, you don't repost it on your site. You have to
I'm cool with
over
that.
here.
I'm cool with that.
They love SharePoint.
But the more places you can put to get at it, I think is so. If they're okay with lots of links leading to a single location, then I think let's just make sure we're compatible with that. Did you have a comment on that one?
I did.
Okay. You did. All right. Anything else on that? And I'll, again, I had kind of thrown out my thoughts here. I think, Angel, you had covered more of that. Again, just that we needed to have a single landing page where it was clear, widely available, and somewhat standardized just in the front pieces of it like that. And then also to clearly spell out the objectives and the qualifications. And I know Latanya is working on sort of criteria for acceptance, just to ensure that they're appropriate on that. And then I had listed priorities, and I can't remember if that was our purview or group 3's. So we may have doubled up, but to me, the better we spell that, the more we spell that out, the better. And I think when I just kind of in my thought process had said this is listed under 2, TASEF report part 2 priorities. That I think we all need to acknowledge that they change with time. That used to be job creation and blight were kind of the only 2 things we looked at, and now affordable housing, grocery, child care. And I added small business space and should have included, I think, historic preservation actually is
that's true.
one that has come up as well.
Yeah.
And then possibly sustainability just with and resilience with all the stuff that's going on. So I'm going to add those to that as well. So.
And how would that, not to get too in the weeds, but because the sustainability in certain places are incentivized for, like, say, the downtown bonus height. So I guess it's just like what increment or what part of sustainability would warrant that.
Yeah.
In specific areas, it may be different.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because if you're getting incentives for bonus height, around some type of rating, and then can you double up on TIF? Or is that what the target is?
Gotcha. Good question. The answer to that, maybe that may be a planning question. Okay. Good question on that one. Anything else sort of on the process and transparency piece of it. Okay. And then from there, I would just move to Quante and Charles just to talk about your thoughts on what recommendations we might want to make. And then this chart, whether that's a helpful part. Part of what I think created this whole process in the first place was just sort of looking at as this grows, it's kind of gone from being an almost undefinable fraction of the budget to 1.2%, then 1.5%, and we haven't filled it in enough to know. But based on the caps for some of these, we know the number is going to get higher as our budget also gets higher in the future. But do we ultimately need to have finance weigh in on, given all the other things that happen in our budget, we may want to just put in a governor that says when we get to 2%, somebody needs to stop and talk about it. Or I don't know what that number is, and I don't know that it's necessarily our job to come up with that, but nobody's ever thought about it. So our job, I think, is at least to get people thinking about it and provide the framework that will give them the tools to do that, is what I can say.
Whether it's a cap or whether it's almost just a required calculation, right, that somebody's in charge of doing on an annual basis. And I do think the part that is contradictory, which you touched on earlier, is we're saying this is a percentage of the overall budget, but that these property taxes wouldn't have existed otherwise, right? So, but I do think it's a fair way to kind of look at a periodic scorecard of like, where does this sit kind of historically, right? And where does it go in the future, which might help guide some of those conversations, whether that, again, that's happening at MDHA or TIF, at IDB, all of which in some form or fashion are going to come back through the council at various different kind of points. And I think it's a good kind of just tool or scorecard for people to know. But I think just as soon as you say we're going to put a cap at 1.8%, something is going to show up the next week that everybody's going to say, gosh, I wish we hadn't boxed ourselves. But because, as long as you're kind of resetting the priorities either formally or informally, Berkeley Councilman Lady, just as you said, the priorities that we think of today are completely different than the priorities that we were thinking 10 years ago, different than 20 years ago, which were different 30 years ago.
That's a really good point.
And we already have the ordinance in place where we have that periodic review of the redevelopment zones and reviewing those priorities. And if we agree with MDHA's assessment of those, I think also we need to look at those redevelopment districts in particular through an equity lens. And I know that's the goal is to be equitable and to spur development in certain areas. But as a council person of a majority African American district, I still hear about inequity. I can't get funding for projects, particularly African American developers can't get funding for projects. And so we need to look at, is it really equitable the way we're approaching it? Are these funds better used in other parts of the county? Because I think about Bordeaux and where the redevelopment district is in Bordeaux, is that the best place for it? Based off, input from the community, should it be somewhere else? Also, I can't remember when that redevelopment district was put in place, but it's been in place for quite a while. And there's been...
Are you talking about Casey?
Bordeaux redevelopment district.
It's been for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
I think it's 2015.
Was it 20?
And there's been
somewhere around there.
very little movement in that area. And so...
Almost nothing.
Yeah. Almost nothing. And so, what additional incentives, what can we do as a city to spur interest? Because you would think, hey, here's a pot of $15 million, people should jump at that, but they're not. Why is that?
Because they don't know that $15 million is
They may not know it's available.
That's it, because I think if people knew that, they would definitely be.
Because you're talking about an area that needs grocery stores and needs child care, and there's $15 million available.
Wow.
We have to spur that. So yeah, what can we do to be more transparent, to let people know, to get things moving in that area? And I also say, from a community standpoint, because a lot of this funding goes through MDHA, there's a stigma attached with MDHA because MDHA is associated with low-income housing. So as soon as community members hear MDHA, oh, you're trying to concentrate poverty.
Maybe you could mention that MDHA is what make the convention center happen. That's the D part that people get mad about.
Because I know I have workforce development projects that are aimed at like the 60 to 80 because of the income averaging. But in order for that to happen, MDHA is listed as an owner, so they don't get taxed on the tax incentive.
Right.
But most folks, transparency, don't understand that. They see MDHA, oh, it's a bait and switch. They put low-income housing here. And there's a need for low-income housing, don't get me wrong. But certain areas feel like it's being concentrated in their area.
Right.
And so, looking at those roles, most people don't even know what the Industrial Development Board is. Getting folks to understand the difference in the roles, and I don't know. So I remember Director White giving a presentation because people think of MDHA as just the housing, but it's the Development and Housing Authority, so they do development as well. But should they be? I mean, I don't know. Maybe their focus should be on the lower income subsidized government housing, and the IDB does more of everything else. But maybe there's some federal guidelines in place that, mandate that MDHA do certain things. That I haven't researched that, so I don't know.
But that's a good suggestion.
But just clarifying those roles and what program best fits with which entity. Let's see what else to say. And then I talked about, because for the TIF funding, there are certain areas that are designated for TIF funding, but does it have to be that way? Can we look at can TIF funding be for a project? And I think about how Metro has purchased several buildings, like the Global Mall because it's a blighted area. There's interest in preserving other historic buildings. Could some funding be attached to that where Metro purchases the building to save it, but then there's some incentive we can offer to incentivize someone to actually do the renovation, the revitalization of the building? Because I think that's where we get stuck. Like we've got the building, but as a city, we're not really developers.
And we shouldn't be.
And also not allowed to be, right? Or can you? I guess you guys.
MDHA can.
Yeah.
But the city doesn't need to be in that business. And I think that's part of the distinction between the IDB TIF is that it's not tied to the redevelopment districts and MDHA specifically. So that gives us the flexibility to do things in those places, or to incentivize private developer who knows what they're doing to.
So maybe we pull in the IDB into those types of projects, to get some folks who know what they're doing. For those types of
Specifically, the $15 million in Bordeaux, I just questioned. I wasn't there at the TOD presentation, so that goes beyond the TIF, goes beyond infrastructure. It can cover vertical construction.
Bordeaux is in TOD too.
No, I guess I think where I'm asking this is, and I know TIF historically is just horizontal, typically infrastructure, but depending on the project, that doesn't cover a lot sometimes. I mean, we are in a city with crumbling infrastructure, so more and more when you are redeveloping in the core, you've got a significant stormwater or some type of utility, but that's like, oh man, like I didn't realize I was going to be there, not let me help get this deal done so it makes sense. So it's like, I don't know what the TOD, or is there another mechanism that can help with more than just horizontal? Because I know, like in Missouri, again, I got into the sales tax, but there were other tools that could go beyond just the horizontal. that's where I think helping get deals done is, especially if it's, say, an existing, I mean, you can offset the cash flow for property taxes, but, how do you help with those upfront costs to rehab the building, to get the daycare up and running, Just not going to handle that for the most part.
I mean, I think it does upfront for infrastructure. Like
Infrastructure, new construction.
Yeah. I think we have to invent that. I'm not sure.
I know, yeah, sorry, I might be veering off, but
But I think that's where the pilot mechanism may work, right? Because you're not tied to because you're always going to be limited by some tax number that's come up through appraisals or whatever that increment. Or,
But the pilot also is based on the increment. I mean, it essentially says you're making a payment in lieu of taxes, and that enables us to make it different from what the taxes would be. But the value of it still is related to what we think those additional taxes are going to be. That's how we decide how much,
so that will,
it is.
but that, and so like just from the additional financing proceeds that might be possible, but it won't necessarily, on my projects, we have our permanent financing locked in on day one, which that isn't true on regular commercial development projects, so that's a different calculation, right?
Good y'all are both here.
Yeah.
Just talking out of my league.
oh, you're saying permanent financing, the day one of construction? No.
Yeah, so that way, even a future abatement of taxes, you can't monetize that early on.
No, it's just your cash flow.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Learning so much here.
Okay, other things on specific recommendations then.
On the caps that we have, the $2.5 million and the $3 million for the mixed income, are we using all of those funds?
According to Joe Kane, we are now bumping up against the $2.5 million on the pilot for low-income housing tax credit. We could get more low-income housing tax credit in Nashville if we had a higher cap on that one.
Okay.
And I think he's ready to ask for that to be changed. So, I mean, I think that's a great question.
And I think we heard that they received and maybe even approved applications for something close to the $3 million of the Health and Ed Board mixed income pilot. If I think we're only in really effective first year of that, right? Do y'all know?
They maxed out.
I don't, but I think they did max out for the first year. It got close to it.
Right. And then they're hopefully very close to having all the legal paperwork.
Yes, they actually sent out the version of the documents today. So.
Oh, that makes me so happy. And I think as soon as that's done, then they're ready to do
The next cycle.
the FY24 stuff. So that one will have,
Which may have a different number, or is it still going to be $3 million?
it's still $3
It'll be
million.
$3 million.
Okay.
I mean, it will take a legislative change to change both of those because they were done by ordinance.
Okay.
But I think a statement from this group saying that should be looked at. If they-
Probably the easiest, most effective tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
I mean, over the last 5 years, I mean, that one
Which
seems
one,
to.
really?
Yeah.
The IDB?
No, on the MDHA palette.
The electric cap, it's 4,000 units,
Yeah.
18 projects.
Yeah.
I think it would be too early on the mixed income one because we just started that one. But definitely on the LIHTC one.
And I think, from a return on investment standpoint, I mean, that one is leveraged because of low-income housing tax credits. So if we're getting thousands of units for that $2.5 million on the mixed income pilot, that is not leveraged. And so we're getting close to 500 units for that $3 million.
500 on those, okay.
Yeah. So I think that's important information, part of the consideration.
And there is a missing number on the MDHA pilot in terms of how many different council districts it's located. It's in more than one.
Some, but I don't think I have all of them.
I know exactly, right? Let me see what happened there.
So from a okay. All right. Anything else on that? So yeah, I had specifically said just in terms of quote obligating future councils. I don't think we want to do that, but I think Mr. Charles Robert has suggested just creating a suggestion of a review mechanism. And as Councilmember Toombs said, we have recently considered and currently withdrawn legislation that would update our process for the MDHA review process. But it essentially said at least every 7 years, MDHA has to go through and look at the remaining amount, the time frame, and the priorities, and say, do we still agree that it should be housing, child care, grocery stores, and things like that? And if they don't do that, then no one can apply for redevelopment financing in those. And I think at this point, well, hopefully that will be brought back early in next term, because right now I think every single redevelopment district is locked out because that hadn't been done, which is...
They're all on hold right now.
They're all on hold. But
I've put a request in. We'll see how it goes.
yeah, can we do that by resolution, or we have to get the ordinance passed?
I don't recall whether it's resolution or ordinance right now, but I know.
Because we had both coming through.
Yeah.
I think there was the resolution and the ordinance. The resolution approves the program, the ordinance kind of re-ups everything, but the ordinance got pulled and they'll come back next term.
Yeah.
So we're waiting until October on that.
It's 11 different council districts. Sorry, everybody, on that last line. I tried when I copy and pasted it out of the
Okay.
PDF.
Just missing one.
I didn't make it over.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, I think it would be powerful if nothing else comes out of this group, for us to at least say it's time to look at the MDHA, because that's really effective.
I agree with that.
And come up with a process to reevaluate
Yeah.
all of these on a regular basis. So, anything else on part 3?
Nope, that's all I got.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Robert, anything else you want to add to that? So then, I guess 2 questions. We have talked about other tools like the Transit-Oriented Development District. We haven't really gotten to know how that works. The big question there is simply, as it's currently spelled out but has never been implemented in Metro Code, you define a development district, and then the entire increment on the entire district gets put into being used as financing for that. And we don't think that's what we meant to do. So the question remains, and it's not the purview of this group to solve that problem, but the thought is that at some point someone will figure out a more defined way to say the increment on, all buildings related to transit, or all residential buildings, or something within this smaller geographic area, 1 block away from where the transit station is, or something. So I think, probably for this group, the recommendation would be to encourage that to go back and get revisited and figured out.
Is the issue with that, because it doesn't necessarily that there's a new, reappraisal or whatever, any increasing taxes, revenues don't go into like a secret bucket somewhere. They only get pledged to loans that are made. And am I thinking about that right? And so that only becomes an issue of potential money being pulled out of the general fund at too larger geographic scale. Is that, because it wouldn't happen right away, right? It's only if there's a loan that's being repaid by those increments and it allows for. Am I thinking about that right?
I think so.
And was the thing, because my impression is that's like a choice when the district is set up to how to structure that. I don't think that was tied to anything, was my impression, but I may be thinking about it wrong. And it needs to be kind of large because we wanted big projects to happen.
Right.
Is that?
It's distracting. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is that a question for me?
It was just,
No, I think it was actually a general question.
just in terms of the issue of having the increment from a larger series of parcels allows for a greater potential tax incentive for any one particular parcel. And that made people concerned about potential misuse. Is that sort of the gist of it? Not because it would take money out of the general fund immediately.
No, it would only take money out of the general fund as things.
So the concern is having too large of an area that's dedicated to TIF funding. If we changed it to it's only like 75% gets reinvested back into the
For all of these.
area.
That's correct. That's correct. But in general, it's been a specific parcel.
right.
And so this,
But I guess to Mick's point, when it is set up, does MDHA then define within, 75% of the project has to be within like 4 blocks of a transit? I mean, will it then tie it more, or are you saying we need to make the recommendation for it to be revised to be tied down more at council?
I think we need to make the recommendation that somebody figures this out.
Okay.
We don't have to figure it out. But it just kind of stalled and died. And I think it's an important tool that might be helpful.
I was thinking, are you talking about MDHA tips, or are you talking about transit-oriented developments? I feel like we're
And I guess
Yeah,
we are, but
they
who's
are.
the administrator of
The
those?
MDHA is on both, right? That's the thing.
transit-oriented developments are 100% outside of my zone of knowledge.
We're also not done with.
Yeah. That's very good.
So it hasn't been figured out. I mean, at this point, NDOT is sort of driving the train on figuring out what they are.
I think the TOD TIFs, as empowered by the state law, as I understand it, would happen in redevelopment district, like a redevelopment district.
In a
type mechanism.
transit-oriented development district.
And that are that's administered, my understanding was through MDHA.
Through MDHA? Okay.
Would be the entity that would be, like my understanding TOD TIF was it's sort of an addendum to the
Okay.
existing thing, but that may not be right.
Confirm that it is administered by. Could well be.
I do not know.
Jeff Syracuse would know.
Because MDHA was at the center of that
Okay.
almost conversation.
Okay, then that's probably right. Okay, so I think that's good. So I think we know where sort of the holes are. My question would be, if people within our respective areas, 2 questions. One, are there specific areas where we know we need to either call back the experts that came to us before, or to pull in other folks? There are plenty of other people that are familiar with this to help us answer any questions. Or do we feel like we need to maybe take the next, because we're off cycle, we could meet at the beginning, we could meet at the regularly scheduled Wednesday in August with the goal of trying to sort of further flesh this, these outlines and things into what may become closer to becoming a coherent document. And then at that point, that would be my suggestion we've all gotten to the point where we've gotten our thoughts on paper, which is always helpful. And now we've got the thoughts on paper, take back and bleed on our respective parts of it. And then meet in August and determine whether we need to be bringing other experts to help us turn it into a final document. Does that sound like a plan? Do we feel qualified to write what we're asking ourselves to write, or do we need to pull in resources?
I would keep Joe Kane in the mix on all this, and just the institutional knowledge, and while some of of this is going to be geared towards the IDB. I think as we come up with those recommendations, I don't think we want MDHA to be surprised by those, and also to kind of know on the front end of like, if they've got feedback of like, here's how we could make this better, or here's why that doesn't work, it'd be better to know that now than kind of setting ourselves up to fail.
Good point.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
Okay, that sounds
I
good.
think we may need to consider someone in tech if we're talking about creating a database.
That's a good point, too.
Margaret volunteered for that. That's the SharePoint expert.
Okay, so we're going to refine the draft. Okay. And then run past our consultants like Joe and someone in IT. How about that?
Yeah.
At MDHA and IT. Margaret, in terms of just open meeting requirements, what are our best methods for doing this in a way that doesn't run afoul of any sunshine laws?
Well, inviting people to meetings, we can, you can send us an email. Danielle, I think, is kind of staffing the group, so you can send her emails and ask her to invite people to meetings if you want to do that. As far as, preparing written documents and submitting those, again, submit those to Danielle, and then Danielle can either send them out or post them on the SharePoint, and then people can go look at them in advance of the next meeting or what have you. Yeah, that's the best way to communicate. And I'm not saying that our office is some sort of go-between, because I think that what we would do is post it online, any communications, so that you can see it.
And I will say, I went looking for the SharePoint, and my system had let me down. So Danielle has added a link from Finance. So if you go to nashville.gov, Finance, someplace hopefully logical there, it will say Tax Abatement Study Formulating Committee.
Well, if you go,
I was looking under Council
I think you have
Resources.
to go to like all these different links to get to places, but this is an official board or commission. So if you go to nashville.gov
Okay.
and click
Board and
on
commission.
government at the top, you have three options up there. You click on government, it gives you another list of things to click on, and you click on boards and commissions and scroll way down to the bottom, and you'll find tax whatever it's called. Whatever it's called. Tax incentive abatement study and formulating.
If you Google that, I think it'll take you to that page, and then there'll be the link to the SharePoint.
Okay.
It is
Yeah,
there.
and the link to the SharePoint, yeah, is on there.
Okay.
So if we are wanting staff input, we have to post that or send it to Danielle and have her send it?
You can.
No, if you want to reach out to me directly.
Okay, I was just like, it's very complicated.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, we can individually talk with
just
Metro
can't
staff.
work.
We
Okay.
can't make decisions in
Right.
Okay.
secret.
Right. Okay. I think we got our methodology here. That's good. Any other comments or thoughts or suggestions or whatever? Okay. I am grateful to everybody for putting that together, and glad you got one time off. That was yours. So let's put the first Wednesday in August on your calendars.
Post-election.
Post-election, hopefully.
That's the day before the election.
Thursday. Elections on Thursday.
Yeah, election's on Thursday.
Oh, we were saying August the 9th. Oh, we said,
Second.
sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
We've been meeting the first Wednesday of the month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it.
It would be the second.
Oh, the agenda says next meeting is August 9.
Okay. Well, let's stick with that. Does that work?
Is that okay for you to do it the day before the election?
I think the 9th might be better.
Second day of school.
Day school.
The nice part about it not being on the 2nd is that it's not the night after
After a council meeting.
that's going to be very long. Our last really long one.
I'm glad I
Public
asked the
hearing.
question.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
So August 9th?
Yeah, with all apologies to Fiona. Second day school. Let's think about that. Let's put it down tentatively on the 9th, and if that's not going to work, whatever. Okay, I believe then that we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
All right.
been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.